What's up, everybody? Welcome back to D's Corner. I am your host, D. All right, so we are working our way through free agency into the offseason. So we're going to touch on free agency predictions for all 32 NFL teams. So let's just jump right into it. First up, we got your Cincinnati Bengals. You see their needs. Their biggest needs, obviously, you're going to want to get you another pass catcher, and you're going to have to get you somebody to protect Joe Burrow. And I think Noah Fant makes the best sense for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's still a young tight end, someone who is athletic, someone who can do some things after the catch. And with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase on the outside, he can work a lot of the underneath stuff. Now, you don't know if T. Higgins will be there. He is on the franchise tag. But like I said, I think Noah Fant is the best pick. The one free agent that I would like to see the Cincinnati Bengals go after. All right, on to the Buffalo Bills. You see their major needs. They did do a lot of releasing. They do need a lot of secondary help, especially in that safety department. And I think Geno Stone is the best player for them. A young safety, he was able to make plays. Actually as the third safety in Baltimore's defense. So he definitely is able to make plays on the ball and come in and replace the Jordan Poyer and the Micah Hyde, in my opinion. So, all right, up next, the Denver Broncos. Again, you can see their top needs being quarterback, mainly with the releasing of Russell Wilson. They also released Justin Simmons, and I think Julian Blackmon would be a good replacement for them. He is still young. He has played some corner, some nickel, and throughout his college career as well as safety. So he could definitely give you a movable piece in that back end, someone to go along with Patrick Surtain out there in that secondary, because Patrick Surtain is legit their only real weapon when it comes to this defensive secondary. Up next, we're going to go to the Cleveland Browns. And the Cleveland Browns, they need running back, offensive line help. They need edge help. And I think Bryce Huff would be that guy. They did just trade for Jerry Jeudy, so that helps the offense. Having a guy like Bryce Huff, who is a motor guy, who is able to produce in the New York Jets defense, putting him opposite of a player like Myles Garrett, and I think with him, he is younger than Zadarius Smith, but I definitely think that he can get you the production opposite and help actually free up at times Myles Garrett. Up next, we have the Los Angeles Chargers with their top picks or top positions of need being defensive line, running back, and offensive line. They did get rid of Austin Eckler. He is a free agent. I could also see Mike Williams being gone, so they probably will need to replenish that receiving core. But DeAndre Swift is a sneaky player that I enjoy watching. I think he would fit well with Harbaugh and his scheme. And they could also possibly go after Blake Corum in the second or third round as well. Definitely gives them an option. A young, versatile back who can run hard in between the tackles, who can catch the ball out the backfield on screens and dump offs as well. So I definitely think DeAndre Swift is a player that the Chargers should have on their radar. Up next, the Kansas City Chiefs. They need wide receiver. They need tackles. And they also, in my opinion, they need to start trying to find a tight end to come in and free up Travis Kelce. We just saw his brother retire. Travis is getting older. He dealt with minor injuries last year, but in the postseason, he was able to turn it on. So if you get somebody, as far as a tight end, someone that can kind of shadow him, a younger guy, and learn how he runs his routes, because he doesn't run the conventional routes, get him going. That way, he's healthy throughout the season. Getting more targets for Patrick Mahomes would be extremely beneficial. And I think Tyler Boyd is a player who can perform in the slot. He's a veteran wide receiver, understands routes, he understands coverages, and understands how to get open. And I think he would definitely be a big time player for the Kansas City Chiefs. Up next, my Indianapolis Colts. We need tight end, wide receiver, and defensive backs. I like Jeremy Chin for us. Jeremy Chin is a bigger safety, somewhat of a linebacker body type, but he is extremely fast. He can cover. He's coming off an injury plagued down year, which could actually help the Colts because they could get him for a little bit cheaper. But when he came into the league, he was a really, really, really good safety. And I think pairing him with Nick Cross could definitely give you some. How do I want to word it? It could definitely give you some good fortune for the future when it comes to the safety position. Up next, we have the Miami Dolphins. They are most likely going to lose Christian Wilkins. They need offensive line. They need defensive line. In my opinion, they need edge with Phillips and Chubb coming off of severe injuries, one ACL, one an Achilles. So, and they also lost Van Winkle to free. They'll most likely lose him to free agency. So I definitely think a player like Grover Stewart, they could kind of work some cap space and get him. He was coming off a 6-game suspension last year, but he's a really, really, really good run defender. And I think this is something that the Miami Dolphins will need. You get that plug up the middle, then you can let those dogs loose on the edge. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are going to be in need of some wide receiver help, some cornerback help, and some safety help. And I think one safety that they should definitely have their eye on is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He is a hell of a ball player. Can play the slot, can blitz, can cover. Seems to always have a nose for the ball, and he brings some form of attitude to your secondary and to your defense as well. And I definitely think that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who's a Florida kid, you get him back down there in his home state, went to college at the University of Florida, get him down there to replace the Rashawn Jenkins they did release, pairing him with Andre Cisco, Tyson Campbell, and you get you another cornerback. Then you have a nice young secondary moving forward in hopes of taking hold of the AFC South. You definitely have some quarterbacks with Anthony Richardson, as well as CJ Stroud, and like it or not, Will Levis. These all three can throw. They all can move. They all are mobile quarterbacks. Chauncey Gardner is a player who can definitely help your defense. Up next, we have the New York Jets, who are going to need to protect Aaron Rodgers and get the man some help catching the ball. This is not a deep free agency class of wide receivers, but it is pretty deep in certain areas. And I think snagging a player like Trent Brown, who can play left or right tackle, who can definitely help protect Aaron Rodgers, who's a mountain of a man, and you're also weakening a division rival in the Patriots, taking one of their starting offensive tackles from them. So you weaken them and boost yourself. Trent Brown, I definitely think, would be someone who can help solidify that offensive line. Speaking of the New England Patriots, they have traded Mac Jones. So some may think that they will draft a young quarterback, which is possible with the number 3 overall pick. However, I think that they do need a quarterback, obviously. They do need wide receiver help, and they'll need offensive line help, like we just talked about. Trent Brown is gone, so is their other tackle. However, getting a player like Gardner Minshew is definitely beneficial for a young quarterback. We saw last year what happened with the Colts when their young quarterback went down, but Gardner stepped in and was ready to play. He ran a pretty much RPO heavy offense, and he ran it to I don't want to say perfection because they didn't win the Super Bowl or make the playoffs, but for a backup quarterback, he definitely elevated the team. I think that's something that he'd be capable of doing with the New England Patriots as well. And he can help groom a young quarterback. And you want to get your young quarterback time to play, time to learn, and all that. You have someone in Gardner Minshew who is able to play and come in and help the young guy out. Next up, we have the Las Vegas Raiders, quarterback, running back, and linebacker. I definitely could see them re-signing Josh Jacobs, and if they want to go to the younger route of quarterback, and it's kind of looking that way, I think that Josh Jacobs obviously would be a bona fide player for them who already has been a bona fide player for them, but he helps the young quarterback out. But if you want to get that defense and you want to get something nasty on that defense and get back to Raider football, like Antonio Pierce said, I think Devin White would be the linebacker that you need. Antonio Pierce being a linebacker would be someone that he will be able to connect with Devin. I'm not sure what was going on with Devin, but since that Super Bowl, it seemed like he just fell into the doghouse of Todd Bowles down there in Tampa Bay. But I definitely could see the Las Vegas Raiders going defensive heavy in free agency, and a player like Devin White makes too much sense for the Las Vegas Raiders. Up next, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I could definitely see Russell Wilson becoming a Steeler. I wouldn't be surprised if by the time this video airs that he has signed with the Steelers, because it makes too much sense. They need competition for Kenny Pickett. Russell Wilson can sign on a veteran minimum, and the Broncos still would have to pay him $39 million. So it's really no risk to the Steelers. I don't know if I like it for Russ, for the simple fact of him not being paid as much. If he does struggle, how short is his leash? What's it mean moving forward? But I could definitely see him getting a 1, maybe even a 2-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who definitely need to rebolster their offensive line. And they also need cornerback, but this is a heavy draft in both of those positions. Let's go to the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens, in my opinion, I'm going to keep saying this, for the running game, I think they need to go after Derrick Henry. If Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the same backfield, would be freaking unstoppable. It would give defensive coordinators a fit. Having someone who can plow, and then you run that RPO and you're so worried about Derrick Henry and L. Jack is just 88 and out the gate. I think that's a definite perfect pairing with Derrick Henry and the Baltimore Ravens. Plus, he'd be the biggest back they've had since Jamal Lewis, but he would also be that grinder, that pounder, and that's a physical division that the Ravens play in. I think Derrick Henry makes the most sense for the Baltimore Ravens. Up next, we're going to go to Houston Texans. They'll need edge, someone to pair alongside Will Anderson. They will need cornerback. I think they just re-signed Desmond King, but he's more of a slot guy, so you are going to need corner and running back. This team has a legit shot at becoming a top-tier team. The division is up for grabs. When you have C.J. Stroud, the offensive rookie of the year, the defensive rookie of the year, and what many believe should have been the coach of the year, and everything is coming back, adding a dynamic guy like Saquon Barkley, this is a 49er, Kyle Shanahan tree, offensive coordinator, and Solid. This could be their Christian McCaffrey. And as a Colts fan, I do not want to see this, but as just a complete football fan, I think this would be an extremely good pairing. Someone who can run the ball between the tackles, bounce it outside, can catch the ball. You can line him up, also line him up at wide receiver. Saquon to the Houston Texans, that should be a go this offseason. Next up, we got the Tennessee Titans. And you're, again, wide receiver, offensive line, and running back. The best thing to help Will Levis would be a running back. And if you go and get a player like Josh Jacobs, the AFC South has a lot of money to spend amongst the 4 teams. I think out of all the divisions, I think those 4 teams collectively, I think the AFC South collectively is up there, maybe in the top 4, the top 5 of cap space. Getting a player like Josh Jacobs would definitely benefit what you're capable of doing with your quarterback. And if you also trade and get T. Higgins and pair him with his offensive coordinator, now you're cooking with grease down there in Tennessee. So I definitely believe and think Josh Jacobs should be on their radar. And with this this running back market, I could also see a player like maybe A.J. Dillon, a bruiser, and have a 1-2 punch with A.J. Dillon and Tajee Spears. But I definitely think the Houston Texans need to go running back. And if I'm the GM, Josh Jacobs would be my guy. Next up, we have the Chicago Bears. They are going to need wide receiver. They're going to need a quarterback. They're going to need some offensive line. Now, there are talks of trading, obviously, Justin Fields. When you see what Mac Jones went for, and Mac Jones was also a first-round pick in that draft. Mac Jones also made a Pro Bowl, and I don't believe Justin Fields has. Him him being able to go for a sixth. I don't see him being traded anytime soon. I think they're going to allow some of these other quarterback dominoes to fall and then see what a team wants to do with them. But you are going to probably, most likely, you're going to draft Caleb Williams. You're going to go to a rookie quarterback. We all believe it to be Caleb Williams. So let's protect him and let's go out and let's get us Robert Hunt, the guard from the Miami Dolphins, who is a mauler. He's a big man, and he's going to come in and he's going to help protect Caleb, but he's going to also get that running game going, which will also be the rookie quarterback's best friend. Next up, we're going to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They do need offensive line, they need edge, and they need DBs. They even reported that both their starting corners they're willing to trade both their starting corners. I definitely see Lloyd Cushenberry as someone who is capable of replacing Ryan Jensen. They will need center help. They'll need, like I said, offensive line help all across the board outside of Tristan Wirfs. But for them to be able to go into free agency and get them a starting caliber center who is young, they just re-signed Baker Mayfield. They also re-signed Mike Evans, and they tagged Antoine Winfield Jr. So for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I would definitely believe they should go out and get Lloyd Cushenberry. Next up, the San Francisco 49ers. They will need defensive line help. Eric Armstead will probably be asked to take a pay cut or probably release if he refuses. I wouldn't be surprised with that. So let's get someone in there who can push that middle next to Javon Hargrave and someone who is Christian Wilkins, who can play the run on his way to the quarterback. And that'll free up the edges right now, who it looks like Drake London. I think Drake Jackson and Nick Bosa. Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals, who they need wide receiver help. They'll need some cornerback help. Realistically, they'll just need defensive help. This coach wants to come in and get his scheme going, get his kind of players going. So I could see some players on the move. But let's surround Kyler Murray with as much as possible. If we're going to draft Marvin Harrison Jr., if he falls to them at 4, if they're going to take Malik Neighbors or even Rome Odunze, get them a veteran wide receiver. Let's put as much around Kyler Murray as possible. And I think Calvin Ridley will be a great addition to the Arizona Cardinals. Next up, we have the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders are going to need an overhaul on their defense, especially on their defensive line. They're more than likely going to draft a quarterback as well. Danielle Hunter is a player that I could definitely see with the Commanders and his production. He's still pretty young. Dan Quinn likes to rush the passer. This is someone who's capable of doing that, and the Commanders have a ton of money. Seems like it's a match made in heaven. Up next, you have the Dallas Cowboys, who they need a running back. They need defensive line, and they'll need some offensive line as well as they get a little older with Tyron Smith, who's reported not going to come back. I think a player, everyone keeps talking about Derrick Henry or even Saquon Barkley to the Cowboys. I don't know that I like either of those picks because of the cap situation, but DeAndre Swift is a player that you can pull from Philly, who you will weaken them. He's young, and he wouldn't cost you as much as those bigger name backs. And I definitely think this is a player who, like as you've seen already for the Chargers, I definitely think this is a player who will find him a new home. And he's shown what he was able to do outside of Detroit, being in Philadelphia. I believe he had a complete healthy season. They did get away from him early for some reason, but once they started putting the ball in his belly, the kid was able to do things with it. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, and I didn't realize that the typing was right there, but they need running back, defensive back, and they need some inside offensive line help. I could see them also making a push for Cushenberry because Kelsey just retired. But a player that I really like for Philly would be Saquon Barkley. I think Philly has enough cap space to get it done. And Saquon being from the area, but he would definitely give that team as well another dynamic player, someone to help out Jalen Hurts, especially in the run game. You can dump it to him. You can also throw him the ball. You can line him up at wide receiver. Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown. That is a hellacious offense. Up next, we have the Atlanta Falcons. They need a quarterback, they need edge help, and they need wide receiver help. I believe they'll get their edge in Dallas Turner. I believe Dallas Turner will fall to them in the draft. I believe they'll be able to pick up a tier free agent wide receiver, but this is a wide receiver deep class. It's not on the board, but this is just a fit that I like. Justin Simmons pairing him with Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell, that's a dominant secondary. And this is a deep cornerback class. So you can get you a cornerback in the third or fourth round to pair with AJ Terrell. When you have two ball hawks like Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates back there, you can definitely have the over the top help. So that definitely gives them something to do, something to build with on that defensive side. And that's where Raheem Morris gets his bread and butter. The quarterback thing will be the main issue. They are trying to get Kirk Cousins, but we'll see how that goes. But he's also coming off of a serious injury. We'll see if they trade for Justin Fields. But through free agency, I think their top target needs to be Justin Simmons. Up next, we have the New York Giants. Quarterback, cornerback, wide receiver. I think they need to go get Gabe Davis. He's played in Brian Daboll's system. He's had his best years with Daboll. The Giants could also be a sneaky team to look out for Justin Fields. I know a lot of people talk about the money issue, but if you look what the Packers were able to do with Jordan Love, I don't believe they picked up his fifth-year option. They were able to finesse the cap by giving him a little bit more money now, and I think that's something that the Giants should probably look into, especially when you look at what they did with Daniel Jones. You're going to lose Saquon, and you need weapons. So regardless of who the quarterback is, I think Gabe Davis comes in and he's able to be an additional piece to your weaponry. Obviously, you're going to have to retool that whole area. Next up, the Detroit Lions. This is a team that I really like. This is a fit that I really like with Stephon Gilmore. Not because he would go expected to win, but the Lions are not the same Detroit Lions. But his little brother plays there, and I just think that'll be something cool. You saw, if you watched other videos I've talked about with the Chargers, talking about trading Joey Bosa. I like to see Joey play with his brother Nick. But I definitely think Stephon Gilmore, as he gets up there, this could be his last year. Maybe he has one more after this. I definitely could see him going to the Detroit Lions, who need cornerback help. Stephon was a good corner. He's still a good corner, even in his advanced age. But having the opportunity to play with his little brother, I think that's something that would be pretty cool. Next up, we have the Green Bay Packers, who will need secondary help as well as some offensive line help. I think Xavier McKinney is a really good safety, and if I'm not mistaken, the Packers are losing 3. Owens, Darnell Savage, as well as Rudy Ford. So Xavier McKinney is a young safety, Alabama product, who will be a great addition in that backfield with Jair Alexander, especially coming out of Alabama. For the most part, they seem to push out a lot of good defensive backs. Up next, we have the Carolina Panthers. They're going to need weapons. They're going to need some defensive help as well, especially if they trade Brian Burns. I could see Joe Horn as well being traded, even Dante Jackson. Jeremy Chin is a free agent. So they're going to need some help back on that defensive side, but you got to put weapons around Bryce. You don't have a first-round pick. I don't see very many wide receivers who would like to come, but I definitely think Noah Fant would be good. The tight end is a young quarterback's safety net. Fant is able to he's able to create after the play. He is an athletic tight end, and I don't know that he was used very much in Denver as well as Seattle, but I think he would be a really good addition in Carolina. Up next, we have the LA Rams. They need some cornerback help. They need some edge help, and obviously offensive line. They have done a good job so far re-signing certain offensive line players. I could see Tyron Smith being a player for the LA Rams as he went to USC. But with the position of need, I also got another USC product, Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson will probably not cost you an arm and a leg. He is a talented talented cornerback who's able to shadow wide receivers. He will need some help here and there, but I definitely think there'll be more zone scheme on the defensive side. Give him an opportunity to see ball and get ball. Up next, we're going to go To the New Orleans Saints. Also, they're going to need wide receivers. They're going to need some line help and D-line help. They've done some restructuring. We'll see how far it goes. They could also be in the market for a running back, especially if Alvin Kamara is released. But they did. Mike Thomas was on a one-year deal, and he will be a free agent, and he's more than likely not going to return. I think a flyer on a player like Calvin Ridley would definitely benefit Derek Carr as well as Chris Olave. Plus, Calvin Ridley's played in the NFC South before, so I think that'll be a good pairing. Up next, we have the Seattle Seahawks, who will need safeties. They're going to need some interior offensive line and linebackers. When you have a new head coach who wants to install his style of defense, I think it's best that he goes and gets some of his players. Two of the positions of need is safety and linebacker. I could definitely see Geno Stone and Patrick Queen being in play for the Seattle Seahawks. I think Patrick Queen will be the best bet. I don't know that they'll bring Jordan Brooks back. I know Bobby Wagner is gone. You're going to need someone who is young and who can find the ball. Patrick Queen was an all-pro last year playing next to Roquan Smith. So how much did that factor in? But how much did he learn from Roquan? I definitely saw an increase in his game this past season, and I think he'll benefit and help changing that identity of the Seattle Seahawks, or getting it back to what it looked like with the Legion of Boom. Lastly, we have the Minnesota Vikings. They're going to need a quarterback. They're going to need some edge. They're going to need some interior offensive line. In my opinion, they cannot let Kirk Cousins lead. Kirk has a good rapport with Justin Jefferson. They have Jordan Addison. They could also bring back KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson. You have a good nucleus of players on the offensive side. Plus, Kirk was playing phenomenal before the injury. Kirk, now he does, choke up in primetime games. Don't really know what that means or what that is about. But I definitely think that Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings are a great pairing. And I don't think that they need to let that go, because if he does go, what's your option afterwards? And how pissed would you make Justin Jefferson? You really don't want to go that route. They do not have any running backs right now after releasing Madison. So that could be another position. But in football, the main position is quarterback. You have one, you don't let him go. And that's the deal with Kirk Cousins. We'll just have to see how that money goes. So that's it. That's all 32 teams, all my predictions for at least one player for each team. Let's see how free agency shakes out. I hope to get this video out before free agency starts. We'll see how that all goes, and we'll see if I was right on anything. Again, like, share, subscribe. Also, you can catch me on the Double D's podcast with my brother Damien. Please be on the lookout for those videos as well. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know if you enjoyed the video or not. Appreciate it. Everybody have a good one.